Hi guys! Today we're going to talk about how to debate metaphors. Now, this is admittedly not a favorite topic of mine. Not a topic to discuss. I love discussing debating metaphors. But actually debating metaphors can be very, very challenging, right? Because metaphors by nature are subjective. They try to say something by not saying that thing, right? Describing something in not a literal sense. That is the definition of a metaphor. But a debate motion or topic is supposed to give you direction. It's supposed to tell you what this debate is about. So using a metaphor in a way is antipodal to the purpose of a motion because it doesn't actually tell you what it's about, right? But it's also a great way to test your abilities as a debater. If you can successfully define, control, and continue a debate about a metaphor, that means that you have a strong ability to take subjective information and ground it. And you have strong ability to balance and control the debate, right? But most importantly, if you can debate topics or you can debate metaphors, that means that you have the strong ability to not panic, right? Because that's what panic does. Panic makes everything crazy. And whenever people see debates about metaphors, they sometimes panic because this debate can be about so many different things, right? And sometimes having too many choices can be very confusing, okay? So today we're going to discuss how to approach debates about metaphors, and remember that you should never panic, right? And focus on the advantages or the benefits you can get by trying to debate these debates. Maybe it's bad to be over-reliant on motions that guide you too much, and sometimes having a motion that's a little bit open can create wonderful, open, fantastic debates, okay? So let's start from the metaphor. What we're going to do today is kind of just go through how I would approach setting up and debating this debate about metaphors, and then we'll look at a few examples. In metaphor debates, there aren't clear gov side approaches and neg side approaches like we have on most other topics or themes, because these debates can be about anything, right? But if you know a lot of the other debates, the challenge here is then to try to find a debate that you know, and plug it into this metaphor. And that's the huge advantage government teams will have in this motion. Being governments mean that you have this huge responsibility of setting up the debate properly, and the metaphor doesn't really guide you that much, but you can make the debate about anything that you want, okay? So make it about something fair, something objective, something that's debatable, that will lead to good debate, and you're already ahead on government, okay? But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the gov strategy and neg strategy, but let's get our heads around this metaphor stuff. Many, many metaphors, right? You've come across some of them in your life, and I'm sure you've used them too. The glass is half full, two birds, one bird in the hand. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, for example. One of my favorite metaphors because it's just a little bit crazy. Right, so we'll do that, right? So bird in the hand. I don't know if you've heard of this metaphor before. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Okay, so this is it's a metaphor or a saying. I'm going to use the term metaphor quite liberally here, but basically any kind of saying that people use or a phrase, and then there will be a debate around it. Okay, so the first thing is that this is not literal. This is not a debate about birds, right? Not a debate about hands, not a debate about bushes. You please do not discuss whether it's better to hold birds in your hand or to keep them in bushes. And it's not a debate about the animal rights of birds or freedom of movement or nothing, okay? Don't think about that. It's a debate about opportunity, right? The metaphor is that if you have a bird in your hand, and we assume that birds are good and you want to have many, many birds, you are a bird collector, let's say, and you have one bird in the hand, but there are two more in a bush nearby, and don't think about the size of this bush or the distance of this bush or how thick it is or even what birds they are, but let's assume I have this one bird, and then close by here, there are two birds in a bush, and I can't just grab them this way. So for the purpose of this metaphor, I will need to let this bird go in order to get the two birds that are in this bush. Okay, maybe I have a huge net that requires two hands and to be cast over this bush. And I don't have a cage in which to put the bird that I already have, and I can't somehow stop this bird from going away. So I need to give up this bird and take these other two birds. Okay, so I hope that's made it a little bit clearer in a way, but it's basically a debate about opportunity and opportunity cost, right? So in order to take the new opportunity, I need to give up what I already have. What I already have is real, because I have it. It's grounded, it's sure. It's a sure opportunity. But this other one is a potential. I'm not sure whether it will happen or not happen, right? There has to be a possibility that I will lose it, but there's a possibility that I will gain it. Okay, so I'll need to let this one go and then try to get this other two. If I don't let this one go, I will never get this other two. But I may not get this other two because I don't actually have it. It's there for my taking, but maybe someone else will take it, or maybe the birds will escape, or maybe I think there are two birds in the bush, but they aren't actually two birds in the bush. It's just one bird making two different noises, or maybe it's not even birds at all. They're insects that sound like birds, or maybe they're toys, something, right? But maybe the opportunity isn't really real, right? So if you think about this kind of scenario, not the birds, but one opportunity that you have and another larger, bigger opportunity that you may have, I'm sure happens to people in life all the time, right? I have $5 with me now, but if I invest it or I loan it to someone else or I put it in the stock market, something, maybe that will become $10. But I could lose it too. So should I be happy with the $5 that I have, or should I try to make it into $10, right? Should I be happy with the job that I have now, or should I give it up and try to get a better, bigger job, right? Should I be happy with the friends that I have, or should I give them up and try to get more friends? Don't. You can always get more friends. You don't have to give up friends to get more friends, right? But you get the idea. You get where I'm going with this. Okay, so it's a debate about opportunity cost, right? It's a debate about things that you have and versus potential things that you could have. Okay, and it's about comparing these things. Okay, so this stuff is real, this is possible, right? But with a high degree of possibility. And which one of these things are more important? So the thing that is real, it's sure. This is not sure. So you could lose it, right? So on the sure side, you can see the frame of mind here is somebody who's more realistic, right? Or pessimistic, but pessimists like to call themselves realists. It makes them sound better than a pessimist. And here, it's more optimistic, right? And this is about possibilities. It's about potentials, investments, things you can gain, right? Because it's about the bird. Which of this bird is more important? So both sides have something, right? You have something here. It's about whether you can have something more, right? So it's not a debate about I don't have anything in my hand, and so I should try to get two. That doesn't make sense because you don't have to give anything up, right? So on the Gov side of this debate, let's scroll down a little bit here. Okay, you are defending, holding on to the things that you have, and on the next side, you want to talk about getting more, getting new things. Okay, so this can already kind of indicate certain debates that you may have had before, right? So for example, debates about what? Conservation, perhaps, right? So we should conserve the environment. Conserve environment we have now, right? Or we should invest, develop the environment. Develop to get more, So we'll lose what we have now, but we're going to get more. And here I'm taking the bird metaphor for like wealth, or development, and talking about things that I gain. It's slightly different because on both sides that you may value what you have differently, right? It could be about austerity. It could be about saving money, okay, versus spending money to get more, okay, to get more money. So this is the debate a lot of countries had over after the financial crisis. Should they conserve, save the money that they have now and use it internally, or should they spend? Should they get into debt? Should they take more risks in order to get more money? Okay, so these are types of debates that you can have. Pick one that you've had before, perhaps, one that is clear, and you need to show that frame, right? So how I'd approach this debate and setting it up, I'll say that this is not a debate about birds, obviously, although that would be fantastic because I know a lot of stuff about birds and I want to talk about birds, but it's not. It's a debate about whether we should, what should we value? Should we value the things that we have now and hold on to those things? Or should we risk those things and try to get more, right? And we'll say that I'll paint a context. So in this environment, the global economic downturn, perhaps, many countries are gambling. They are trying to get more. They say we need to encourage spending, we need to invest more, we need to try, we need to do more fantastic things. But I'm going to say no. I think we should hold on to the things that we have first and not risk losing them because things could get worse. Yes, we only have one bird now and everybody wants more than one. But what if we have no birds because we need to give up this one bird? Okay? So go down this line and think about a few different topics that you could have. Should you invest in the people at home before you expand internationally? Should you value education locally versus education abroad? I don't know. Different kinds of things about choices and sacrifices. Okay? Now, there are many different things that this could be about, but don't spend too much time finding the ideal context in which to establish this. Because then you don't have enough time to develop this context and to find arguments. All right? So let's look at the general approach. Like I said earlier, there's not a huge guide here because it's very broad and it's very open, right? But what I think is important is to figure out the most common understanding of this phrase. Now, even if you don't like the most common understanding of this phrase, don't change it into something else, okay? Because then everybody gets shocked and surprised. The other team will get surprised, although it's very hard to have a definitional challenge in these debates because the definition doesn't actually nail something down. But the judges also get surprised and then it becomes very confusing, right? Your goal from government is to set up a clear debate. Most people will have an idea when they look at this motion, so go with that, most people's idea. Explain that and then very quickly ground it, right? If that's what most people think this debate should be about, make it. Your freedom is not in interpreting it as something else, but your freedom is in choosing which context, which country, which issue, which theme, what exactly you want the debate to be about. Okay? But the essence of that metaphor, the balance, don't change that. Right? Right. So then set it up. What is it associated with? Make the debate about that. And this part is very important. What are the standards of the debate? How exactly are you going to measure it? Don't make this just a discussion. So the debate about the bird in the hand versus the one in the bush, it's about risk-taking. How will we measure the debate? You're going to say that in this context, we think this is the more reasonable, more practical, more beneficial thing to do. And that's going to be our standard. We're going to say that right now in this context, this is how people should act. You could be different too. Are you saying that everybody should act this way all the time? Are you saying that most young people should act this way? What exactly is your standard? Okay, and what do you mean by this way? And how do you measure if you are successful or not successful? Okay? On the opposition, there's not really that much you can do because you don't know where they're going to run, right? What you can do though is you can still do this part on opposition. You can still try to balance the philosophy. If I'm opposing this birds in the hand bush motion, I know that they have to talk about possibilities, right? Are they going to be realist? Are they going to be a little bit more conservative? Or are they going to dare to dream? And I know on opposition, I need to be the person who says, go for the 2 birds in the bush, right? Because maybe there are 4 birds in the bush, maybe there are 10 birds in the bush, and then I'm going to go for them, right? And then I'm going to say like, but even if you lose the birds in the bush, because I know that's what they're going to say, I'm going to say that you should try, right? So this debate is about people trying. It's about ambition. Yes, if I quit my job now, I may never get a better job, but I'll always think about what if, I could have gone and gotten that other job, and then I will not be happy with where I am. So I need to follow my heart. I need to be bold. But does that mean you need to do it all the time? No, maybe not. That's crazy, because then you'll never settle down, right? But as long as you see a real possibility, then you should go for that possibility. And what does that tell me? Now in op, that I need to set some kind of standard too. So what I mean by real possibility, I don't think people should just jump into every bush looking for birds, but the motion says there are 2 there, so there should be sufficient facts, there should be some kind of awareness, certainty that there are a couple of flying creatures, or maybe not flying, not all birds can fly, right? So a couple of these bird creatures in that bush, more or less, and the opportunity is fairly clear. So there's more than remote chance that the economy will improve through investment. There are some experts and economists that say we need to gamble, we need to do this. So I think that we must try, right? We can't be pessimistic, we need to be optimistic. Okay, so you still can prepare, even if you don't know what the exact context is going to be, whether they're going to set it up in a debate about the environment, or a debate about business, or education, or sporting clubs, whatever it is they want to talk about, you need to defend possibilities, right? You need to defend ambition. You need to defend people doing more. And this will already give you your opening, it gives you your basic case split, your stance, well, not the split, but your basic arguments you can get. The second speaker may need to, come up with things on the fly, but that's the challenge of op. The challenge on op is how to react, right? So people will be a little bit more forgiving if you're not that clearly structured across your case. But if you can react well and react strongly, then judges are going to be impressed. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And that reaction is like they were listening to them in their prep time, which I hope you were not doing, listening to them in their prep time. But sometimes what happens is Gov messes it up. Because Gov is so confused about what the motion should be that they actually try to talk about birds and bushes, or they try to talk about 100 different things, right? In that situation, do their job for them. What am I doing? Don't know. In that situation, when Gov is not clear, op should be clear, right? So op should define and provide a context. So if you can say that, look, this debate is clearly about opportunities that you can get versus things that you already have, and whether or not we should give up the things we have in order for the things that we can potentially gain. And here in opposition, we always stand on the side of ambition, of reasonable ambition, but on the side of ambition, because we say that's how societies evolve, and we say that's what leads to success in the long term, right? So I'm not sure about all these many different things that they're talking about, but this is the clear kind of theme, and we're going to approach this. Okay, now if you can do that, then you provide clarity. Don't just spend the whole debate arguing, moaning, making all kinds of strange animal noises. That's not very productive. Okay, so prepare for the philosophical, or prepare for the principle clash. Principle clash, and if they don't provide the principle clash, you provide it. Right? In terms of argumentation, use your knowledge of philosophy, right? By that I mean just the general principle approaches. What is right in this situation versus what's right in another situation. If you have knowledge of frameworks, it's an excellent opportunity to just take a framework and apply. Right? If I can make this a debate about banning, I'll make it about banning, explain why it should be about banning, and then just run the banning debate. Okay? So it's an excellent opportunity to use and apply those frameworks. Find and insert common debate arguments, right? The role of government, the harm principle, self-actualization. I can insert that into this bird motion, right? So the role of government is to protect, the primary role of government is to protect people. So the government shouldn't take too many risks with these resources, right? I'm not sure about harm principle, not harming birds, but maybe self-actualization, maybe the rights, maybe sustainability, maybe sovereignty, something, right? Take arguments that you're used to making and then just show how it works in this context, okay? Because you already would have chosen one context. Opposition does the same thing, right? These debates are not about coming up with completely new ideas. It's about how to take a slightly different view of a debate that you already had, right? So we've had this debate about euthanasia before. We've had this debate about, saving refugees or humanitarian intervention or something before. Now, I'm going to look at it from a slightly different context, from this philosophical metaphor and see how we can work it out, right? And then as you're debating, just keep referencing the metaphor or referencing very kind of principle open approaches, okay? And not that much to add here, right? The clash will depend a lot on the exact context that you bridge the metaphor in, okay? So, let's look at some exact topics. I think that's going to help a lot. As usual, what you need to do is prepare for this on your own, okay? Don't just listen to me, because that's not going to help you that much. I mean, it definitely helps you, but you need to try this on your own first, right? So remember what we just talked about in regards to metaphors, and then try to work it down here, to apply it in this context. Okay? Take some time, apply it, and then come back. Alright, great. Excuse me. So, the pen is mightier than the sword. What is this debate about? Not a debate about gladiator sports, and whether someone should fight somebody with a sword using a pen. It's not a battle that will last very long. But it's about different approaches to problem solving, right? So the sword here talks about using violence, perhaps. The sword talks about using aggression, using force, right? The pen is about using words, using communication, right? Negotiation. Okay? So that's what this debate is about. This debate is about whether we should talk or whether we should use force. Okay? Not just act. It's not about talking versus acting, because talking is a kind of action, right? And you need to frame this clearly from government, right? So you need to say what the other side should support and what we should support. So this is a debate about negotiation versus intervention. Negotiation versus force. What issues can be set up here? This can be a debate about dealing with, oppressive regimes. Right? Should it be a debate about, so here it could be sanctions versus military intervention, right? It could be a debate about talking to insurgents, right? So should we negotiate with insurgents or should we attack them, right? So negotiation versus using force. Could be a debate about what best brings regime change, right? Internally, should it be, non-violent or using violence? Many different ways and approaches you could bridge this, right? But that's the basic sort of clash. It could be rehabilitation, right, versus punishment, strong type of punishment. So each one of these things have slightly different pros and cons. Some of them may seem a little bit easier towards the gov or a bit easier towards the op. You choose based on what you think is fair. Okay, so I can't say that this is not a debate about whether we should help people or kill people. That doesn't make sense, right? This is not a debate about whether we should teach students how to write or teach students how to fight. That also doesn't make sense, although it kind of rhymes, right? If you set up set up really unbalanced debates, you're going to lose it. The judges will think you're unfair, and the other team calls you out for being unfair, and then they reduce their onus, or they provide an alternative way to look at the debate. It's not going to work out for you. Okay? So, of all of these things, I think negotiating with insurgents, negotiating with terrorists, right? I think that's a really clear one. Should be a debate that you've done before. You could do that. Sanctions versus military intervention, or negotiation versus sanctions, right? Could be one. So if you prep a debate about Iran, you prep a debate anything else, just take that and plug it in, okay? And once you have that, I think the rest of it should be fine. I'm not going to focus so much on the specific arguments because I don't want you to be fixated on that, right? The debate is about creating other debates, and you can get those specific arguments from elsewhere. Let's look at another one. It is better to have debated and lost than to not have debated at all. Now, don't be shocked if you've never heard this phrase before, because I just made it up. I have been inspired by the one you may have heard of, which is, it is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, right? So, what is this one about? It's about the value of trying, the value of experience, right, versus the harms of loss. Well, not harms of loss, you lose something. Well, the harms of doing those things, right? So I said the harms, the loss, all the things that you lose from trying, the failure, right? So it's about certainty. So when you're not sure about something, should you still do it, or should you wait? Should you say that it wasn't worth it? I should only do things that I am sure of, right? And in a lot of this, in this debate, I think the biggest, the most important thing is reframing value, right? Because here, there is the lost part. So on governments, you say that the value is not in winning the debate, right? The value is in debating. The value is in the experience gained, right? On opposition, they say no, the value is in achievement. And if you're not going to achieve, you're not going to gain anything, right? Then you've lost. So there is no value. It's a missed opportunity, right? So better to have experienced love and lost, or than to not have loved at all, right? On the other side, it says it may be better because losing love can be really painful and traumatic and may make you hate it forever and ever, and so you're never going to do it again, right? Now, this debate could be one literally about debating, right? Whether or not we should encourage more people to debate, we should have debating sessions in schools and everything, because even if it's very challenging for many people, and some people may not like it, and some people may actually hate it, overall, there's still more net gains, it's more positive experience. And the other side says, no, you shouldn't force people, it shouldn't be mandatory. We should allow people to do it, but you shouldn't force people to do it. You shouldn't compel people even to do it, because then they could hate it. And then if they hate it, you lose a lot of the value, and the value comes from them liking it, and that comes from their choice, and that's going to lead to their achievement, etc., right? So that could be a frame, right? So if you don't want that though, and for this purpose of this exercise, I don't think we should take it literally. Let's try to infer what other contexts we can apply, right? So if it's a debate about experience versus gain, what could it be? It could be about sponsoring, say hosting events, hosting international sporting events, let's say. How does this fit in this framework? Well, because the value from these events tend to be very subjective or often negative, right? You lose money. Sometimes the press or the perception is negative, right? You get a negative perception. So it tends to be pretty bad, right? And you can set this up when you start from Gulf. You can say like, this is all those losses that people get from hosting these events. But you think that overall it's positive, that people still should do it because of the experience, right? Because it's empowering for the country, for the people. It allows the people to feel proud that they've done something, and gives the local people of the local region access to these things. And in the long run, it helps development, it helps branding, it helps people see your country, your place, and so on and so forth, right? So it's better to have hosted an international sporting event and lost money, lost the results, right? Lost the finals of the event, than to have never hosted it at all. That works, right? Right? Good. So similarly around that theme, okay, it was better to have tried and bring regime change to this country than to have never tried at all. And better to try negotiating with insurgents than to never negotiate at all. Something, okay? And then frame it that way from the debate, and the rest of it will just be the debate that you have, except every now and then you'll come back and say, that's why a country should try. On the other side, you'll say like, no, if it's more harmful, they shouldn't have tried. We lost too much. Okay? Fantastic. Last but not least, this house believes that the glass is half full. This is a debate topic that has actually been used in debate tournaments. If I'm not mistaken, the World Universities Debating Championships back in the day. Thank God it's not that day anymore. Not that time, although, yeah, I shall refrain from giving opinions on motions. But what is this debate about? So, common, I'm sure you've heard this phrase before. This is a glass. There is water in it. Now, is this glass half full of water, or is this glass half empty of water? Is the water escaping? Is the water coming in? I don't know. It's your perception, right? So if I look at the glass and I like things to be full, I like things to be complete, then I'll say it needs more water. The glass is half empty, right? So the glass is missing something. I'm focused on this part. Okay, there's too much air. The glass is losing something. So that's slightly more negative view. If I'm more positive, I can say like, we're halfway there, right? The glass is half full of water. This is fantastic. I can do many things with this water that exists in this glass. Versus the other person going like, we don't have enough water. We still need to get more. Things are lacking. That things are missing here. Okay? So this is a debate about a more optimistic view, meaning the glass is half full, and a more pessimistic view, right? Meaning the glass is half empty. So on Gulf, you are more optimistic, okay? And on Nag, you are more pessimistic. What you need to do is you need to pick a situation. So the context here is, what is the glass, right? What is the glass, and what is it half full or half empty of? And that will be your standard to define the debate. So for example, if I say the glass is this green is not really a good color. The glass is the economy. Okay, and half full or half empty is our GDP, or the strength of the economy, right? It's the strength, it's the development measured by employment, measured by all these other things, right? So I say right now, the economy is half full. The economy is working towards strength, it's recovering, it's fantastic, we should feel positive, we should feel good because our economy is halfway there, right? It's halfway fixed, it's fantastic. The other side says, you should accept the glass. There's no point trying to argue that the glass isn't really the economy, that doesn't make sense, right? But you argue that if this standard is properly set, you can say, no, it's not. The economy is half empty. We still have a long way to go. And even though we have some of these things, you can't argue the glass is completely empty, okay? Because that's a completely different debate. But you can say like, some of these things are there, but it's not enough. We still need to focus on, we still have a lot more to go, right? It's not really full. It is emptying, right? It's bad, okay? So that's one way you can look at it. You can pick any other different, context. You can look at the context of a specific company and say whether it leads to more harms or benefits, a specific action, a specific movement, society, a social problem, right? You can say that anything, right? Another way to look at this has more benefits than disadvantages. So these are the benefits. This is the disadvantages, right? And you'd say a pessimist always sees disadvantages. An optimist will see benefits, right? So if I talk about, for example, human cloning, I would say human cloning, we should be optimistic about human cloning because it can save lives, it's going to develop our community, our society, it leads to everlasting life, and I'm optimistic about our ability to use this technology for the right reasons. I'm optimistic about whether or not we will do the right thing with it. I don't think we're going to create super soldiers, and I don't think it's going to lead to a huge gap between rich and the poor. I think it'll be fantastic. I'm optimistic about human cloning. I think we should support it. The other side says like, no, what are you talking about? This human cloning thing is horrendous. It's going to destroy society as we know it. People are going to create super soldiers. You watch Star Wars, right? It's a problem. If you haven't, you should watch it. And you can say rich people are going to abuse it to create everlasting life by plugging their consciousness into clones of themselves. And it's going to change the way we understand what it means to be human, and that's a problem, right? So human cloning, maybe there's some things there, right? But they're more bad things. The more reason for us to be pessimistic than there are reasons for us to be optimistic. Okay? Now again, don't get fixated by the glass. Don't spend your entire prep time talking about all the things in the world that we could fit into this motion, or ranting about the adjudication core and why this is a terrible topic to run. You're presented with a challenge, but within that challenge lies an opportunity. Okay? So if you're Gov, take a deep breath, don't panic, and think about how you can approach this debate. Think of the general understanding of the metaphor, take the general principles in Gov and Op, plug it into a context, run the debate. If you're a neg, don't panic. Think about the general principles of this metaphor. Think about a variety of contexts in which it could be applied. Don't have to choose one, but think of general philosophical arguments, principal arguments you can run on neg. And then run. Okay? So, I don't think you will see a lot of these topics, but you will see them. And I think that the more developed debater, the more experienced you are, the more likely or the more you need to be able to deal with these topics. Okay? Because there's no excuse for you not being able to deal with them. So, have fun, enjoy debating metaphors. And that's not a metaphor. I just hope you really do enjoy debating metaphors.